and a courageous move at the time. So basically, in this connection, it's important that we get some safeguards from the world's nuclear powers like the U.S., the U.K., Russia, France, and later we got the opportunities to develop our young country. We invited some major international investments, foreign direct investments that facilitated the country's economic development. And because of these investments, we've been able to deal with our social issues too. So in this connection, I believe that Kazakhstan could be acting as an intermediary and is acting as an intermediary between the countries on the topics that are being discussed at this session. But our mediation experience of Kazakhstan should become an example of inspirational example for the countries which think whether they need nuclear weapons or not.
One more question from the participants, and we have, if you put your hand up, please, so we'll get you the microphone. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Ashok Sajja, former ambassador here in Kazakhstan. I wanted to make one comment about the discussion we've had. I think there's been a lot of, Mr. Galloway said the attack on Iran cannot take or should not take place because of the horrific consequences that would. And I think Ambassador Hunter mentioned, and some of the other speakers mentioned about what is the support for such a move in Israel and elsewhere. And I would like to add another dimension to it. And that's my personal view, that's my personal feeling. I don't speak for my government. But I don't think that such an attack is at all possible. And the reason why I say is, because I don't think it is Israel alone which can sort of go ahead with this sort of an attack. It needs the financial and the military backing and support of the United States and of Europe. And I think the sort of crisis that these countries are going through, whether it is Europe, the Eurozone crisis, USA, I don't think whether it is the political leadership or it is the people, that they have any stomach for such an attack, for such a conflagration, coming in at all. So this is one point, and I think what was mentioned here, both countries, Iran and USA, seem to have been talking at each other rather than with each other. And we really need to, maybe if direct talks are not possible, maybe some back channel. I think that's been used very effectively. Track 2 diplomacy, track 1.5 diplomacy. Do something maybe outside the media attention. Right. But when people are speaking with each other,
okay. Ambassador? As we have only a couple of minutes, I'll get George Galloway to respond to this, if I may first, sir.
Well, I agree with the ambassador that an attack on Iran is not, on balance, likely to happen for the reasons I adumbrated, the ones that he added, and indeed even the speaker from what they call Israel. You see, we don't all recognize Israel. There are some places you don't recognize, and some places we don't
Scotland.
recognize. Indeed. I don't myself believe that it will happen, but it will not be the end of the aggression. Ambassador Hunter imagined for a moment that I had forgotten the perfidious role of Albion in history. My Irish grandfather, when I told him the teacher had said that Britain had an empire so vast that upon it the sun never set, my Irish grandfather answered, that's because God would never trust the British in the dark. And I never had cause to doubt him. I add only this: it will not be the end of the confrontation, because for all the benign words of Ambassador Hunter and how I wish he were running for president rather than the two people who are, for all those benign words, the powerful interests of the big powers, the big imperialist countries, dictate the constant drive for control over resources, over markets, over commodities and raw materials, and strategic political power. And that will not change. I just predict this to you. I say to Her Excellency, Dr. Darega, that we will be discussing, if God spares us 10 years from now, a similar crisis between the United States and China. Because China in 10 years from now will be the #1 country in the world. And the same imperialist countries that are now threatening Iran will be having sleepless nights over the burgeoning influence and power of China in the world. So let me predict that the 2020, not 10 years, 2020 Eurasian Forum, and I pray to God that I'm alive to attend it, it will be dominated by the confrontation between the United States and China, which is, I think, the preeminent political and strategic preoccupation of the United States.
Which suggests Mr. Mehman Parast may be wrong in saying they should learn Farsi. They should learn actually Mandarin, maybe.
All of us should learn Mandarin.
So one very, very last quick question. We have only about 2 minutes to the gentleman at the back.
I'm Harry Nanda. I'm a freelance journalist from Canada. My question is for Mr. George Galloway. You had said at the beginning that if you were Iran, you would get a nuclear weapon. My question is, if you were Iran today, would you also threaten Israel to wipe away from the world map or question the Holocaust too?
Well, I certainly would never question the Holocaust. I believe the Holocaust to have been one of the greatest crimes in human history, and I believe it ought to be a crime to deny it, as it is indeed in some European countries, though not my own, though I support it being a crime in my own. There's a totally false confluence here. I reject anti-Semitism to the core of my being, but I also reject Zionism and the state of Israel. These are not the same thing. The idea that because you want a political system to disappear, that means you want the physical annihilation of the people and the land, is completely ridiculous. Ronald Reagan prayed nightly for the destruction of the communist system here in the former Soviet Union. That didn't mean that he wanted your death or the destruction of your land. It means he wanted the destruction of a political system. Zionism is a political system of apartheid, and many of us wish for its destruction. That doesn't mean we wish this man to be destroyed or the territory on which he lives to be destroyed, merely that the political system that he supports should disappear. And that's all that Ahmadinejad said. He never threatened the annihilation of Israel. He never threatened the annihilation of that man in the front row. He hoped for the elimination from the pages of history, the political system called Zionism, just like Mr. Reagan hoped, successfully, unfortunately, for the destruction of the system that used to exist here.
Well, there were George Galloway's words. We wrap up our session again. A round of applause for everyone on the panel there, please.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead, Ambassador.
Just one couple more things, if I might. First, Ramin, if I can call you that, I would like to invite you to come to my home in Washington and talk about these. And I guarantee you, you'll hear good Farsi spoken. And I'd be pleased to come to your home in Tehran as long as I get some good Iranian food. And a final thing about our Kazakh friends here. It's going to take a long time before nuclear weapons can be eliminated. An awful lot has to be done in terms of security and a lot of other things. But unless the kind of leadership you're showing here begins with that as a goal and an effort, we're never going to get there. So I want to applaud the government of Kazakhstan, our dear chairperson and organizer, and everybody else who is setting a goal and holding our feet to it to see whether we can indeed get to a world that's going to have a sense of security and a sense of promise, a world that may have nuclear power. The Prime Minister here is exactly right, but in which nuclear weapons are no longer to figure.
Well, with that, the issue of international dinner diplomacy on the plate, if you'll pardon the pun, I know Mr. Mehman Parast would like to respond to your comment.
من آخر صحبت
I just would like to make a joke here. Back in Iran, some people believe that all the pressure that is being produced on Iran is basically only a reason to just to contradict our revolution, to stop our revolution, and people believe that their interests might be endangered after the revolution. So we joke like this: we promise that we'll stop all of our nuclear programs. We will be having no nuclear programs. Do you think they will solve the American problem? No, this will not. So then they say that we might have some human rights issues. If we resolve all of our human rights issues, then we might say that we accept everything that is told by America. Might tell them that we can accept all of the rights. They think they will resolve all of our problems with America. No, they say they'll start looking at the democracy issues. When we tell them that we resolve all of the issues of democracy with America and say at the elections that we will elect people who you tell us to elect, do you think we will resolve our problems with America? They say no, because then they will be looking at the issues of sexual minorities, homosexuals. If we tell them, okay, we agree with the sexual freedom, sexual minorities, do you think we'll resolve our issues with America? No, they'll find some other issue just to be able to fight with us. So our assumption is basically that Americans are not pursuing their goal as the resolution of this problem at all.
Iran's food, certainly if Ambassador Hunter is coming for dinner. I quoted Bertrand Russell at the very beginning, and I found another quote of his which intrigued me, and it said, "Neither a man, nor a crowd, nor a nation can be trusted to act humanely or to think sanely under the influence of a great fear." And I think that should really give us something to think about. Again, thank you very much for an excellent panel here. We have a short break.